Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Sarah, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet this unicorn right here. This is Belle the baby unicorn, and you can find the written pattern in my pattern shops, which I'll have linked in the description. But I do have a couple of quick disclaimers. The first one is that I will be showing you a couple different techniques that I do not use in the original pattern. I designed that pattern over a year ago, and so my techniques have changed a little bit since then. But I will be showing you how to crochet this version of Belle exactly the way it looks right here. The second disclaimer that I have is that I crochet pretty quickly, so if you need to, make sure to slow down the video, pause, replay. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below and I'll try and answer them as quick as possible. That is it for the disclaimers, so let's go ahead and get into the materials. The first thing you need for materials is some yarn. I'll be using this light pink yarn, and I'm gonna do some scrap busting. So that's why I have a bunch of them. I'm not sure how much I'll actually end up needing. You'll also need a secondary color for the mane and the hooves, and you could do the hooves in a different color. You could match the hooves and the horn, or you can match the hooves and the mane and the tail. So it's entirely up to you what color combo you want. I usually go with 3 colors though. So this for the hooves, the mane, and the tail, and then a lighter color for the horn. And then I also have some size 4 yarn here. This is skinny chenille, and the reason I have this yarn is I'm going to use it to start my magic rings, and I'm also going to use it to sew certain pieces on. With the yarn, you will need a crochet hook. I'll be using a 5mm hook today, and then you'll also need a pair of scissors and a sewing needle or 2. I like to have 2 on hand. The big plastic one for the size 6 yarn. I find that plastic tends to tear the yarn up less. That's just my opinion though. And then I have a long metal one for the size 4 yarn when I'm going to be sewing with that. The next thing you'll need is a pair of safety eyes. So these are 16mm, just basic black eyes, but you can use any eyes you want. And then finally you'll need some stuffing. And that is it for the materials list. So let's go ahead and get into the crocheting. I've gone ahead and cut some of my size 4 yarn into little strips. This is so I can make my magic ring. If you have a better method for your magic ring or your chain 2 method, go ahead and use it whenever I use a magic ring. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever if you use a different technique. We're going to start with the ears. So for the ears, we're going to make our magic ring. And in that magic ring, we're going to single crochet 4. Once you've done that, go ahead and close up your magic ring. And for the next round, we're going to increase, so 2 single crochets in 1 stitch, and then we're going to single crochet, and you'll repeat that twice. And for the next round, we're going to increase, single crochet 2, and repeat that twice. Now I'm going to secure my center ends and then turn the piece right side out. So I like to make sure that everything is pulled nice and tight, and then I tie the 2 size 4 yarn ends together, just a couple of basic knots, and then I tie all the size 4 to the size 6 yarn with a couple of knots, and that just makes everything nice and secure. And now we're going to turn this right side out, just like that. And for the next round, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. And now for our final round, we're going to decrease. I use the invisible decrease, and then single crochet twice, and you'll repeat that 2 times total. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim these ends. Normally I would just tuck them in, but we want our ear to be as flat as possible. So if you have a lot of ends, you might want to trim them. We can just stuff the body with them later. Go ahead and slip stitch, chain 1, and fasten off. You need a little end. It doesn't need to be too long. We're going to be reinforcing the ear, so we'll be sewing about 4 stitches down. So just leave a length of yarn long enough for that. And now we're going to go ahead and repeat this exact process for the second ear. And here are both ears finished. So now I'm going to quickly make the horn. Now the horn isn't crocheted on, it's sewn on, but I like to sew it on once the ears are reinforced. So I'm going to make it now. You can always wait to sew the horn on until the plushie is finished, but I just prefer, like I said, to sew it on before the head is stuffed. For the horn, you're going to make your magic ring, and you're going to put 4 single crochets into your magic ring. Go ahead and close it up. And then for the next round, you're going to increase once and then single crochet 3 times. For the next round, we're going to increase and then single crochet 4 times. Now real fast, I'm going to secure the center ends again, just the same as the ears. Give everything a nice knot. Then I'm going to turn it right side out. And then for the final round, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. And now you're going to slip stitch, chain 1 and fasten off, leaving length of yarn for sewing. If you want, you can join some more size 4 yarn to sew this on, but since it isn't a very big piece, I'm just going to leave a length of yarn. And now, depending on the yarn you used and how big your ends are, you might need to stuff the horn a little bit. I'm going to give it a tiny bit of stuffing at the base here. And here's the horn finished. So now we can go ahead and start the head and body. For the head and body, we're going to start with a magic ring, just the same as the other pieces, except this time we are going to put 6 single crochets into our magic ring. Once you're done with that first round, go ahead and close up the magic ring. And for the second round, we're going to increase in each stitch, or increase 6 times total. And for the next round, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. I'm going to secure my magic ring and also secure this factory knot that I happened to find. Same as the other pieces, just pull everything nice and tight and then tie everything together. Now I'm going to turn my piece right side out. And for the next round, we're going to single crochet 3 times. And then we are going to increase 6 times. And then we're going to single crochet in the last 3 stitches. For the next round, we're going to single crochet 3. And then we're going to increase single crochet once, and then we'll repeat that 6 times. And we're going to single crochet in the last 3 stitches. And here's what our head is looking like so far. For the next 2 rounds, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. During the next round, we're going to join the ears. So in order to do this, we'll be crocheting through 2 layers of the ear and 1 layer of the head. That'll all make sense in a second. But first we need to single crochet 7. And now we're going to join that first ear. Like I said, we're going to go through 2 layers of the ear and then the next stitch of the head, just like this. Yarn over and single crochet normally, and you're going to repeat that 3 times total. And then we're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. And here was what it looks like when you join the first ear. So we're going to repeat the exact same process with the second ear through both layers of the ear and the next stitch of the head. And repeat that 3 times total to join the second ear. And now we're going to single crochet in the last 7 stitches. And here's what our head looks like so far with the ears joined. So now we're going to single crochet in each stitch for 1 more round. Before we continue on, we're going to do a few things. The first thing you're going to do is reinforce the ears. So I do this by taking the ends of each of the ears, thread your needle, and we're going to come up through to this round right here in front of the ear. I'm going to go one stitch higher than this. And I like to put my needle around the stitches, so kind of like if you were doing a front post crochet, but going with your needle around the single crochet. And then you're just going to attach it to the head. And I find that this just cleans up the seam and also reinforces the ears a little bit so they don't fall over as easily. And then once you've finished, you go all the way across. You can take the yarn back into the inside, and I'm going to secure it with a couple of knots. So I just create a loop and slip my needle through it to create a knot. And I do that a couple times to secure the end. And sometimes you might have some fluffies that you need to pull off. So here you can see the difference between the two ears. This one's secured and this one is not. You can kind of see the seam where we joined the ear versus on this one where it looks very seamless. So now I'm going to repeat this process with the second ear. And here are both our ears secured. So the next thing we're going to do is add our eyes. So I add them about here. So you want to add them between rounds 5 and 6. Usually I just do this visually by looking at the last increase round and the first single crochet round and putting it between there. That's why I had to count that real quick. And then I also like to place them just below the ears. So here the top of the eye lines up with the bottom of the ear, and very similar on the other side. You can go ahead and get a different eye real quick. This one's got some issues on the surface. This one's much better. I also like to shape my face, so when I put the eyes in, I kind of play with it a little bit to see what it'll look like once you sink them in when the plushie's finished. So I'm going to lock them in place. Now you can always embroider your eyes. I have a tutorial on how I do that. A lot of people have said that my eyes look really clean, and for that my tip is to use a smaller yarn type, and then make sure that when you're embroidering them, all of the pieces of yarn lay flat against each other. Don't let them, you know, kind of cross each other or anything like that, because it'll look a little bit strange. But this isn't about embroidering eyes, I just thought I would mention it. And then the final step for the head before we move on is sewing the horn on. Now, like I said earlier, you can do the horn later, but I like to do it now. So what I do is I sew it about here on the head, so obviously centered with the eyes, and then about around ahead of the ears. You can adjust your placement as you want. Maybe you put them evenly, but I like it when it's slightly forward on the forehead. Let's go ahead and thread your needle. And I'm just going to begin sewing. If you want, you can pin things in place. I'm a very visual person, so I usually just look at it and place it where it is. Once I sew the horn on once, I like to go back around and reinforce it in the same way we did with the ears. That way it looks very seamless. So sew around the post of the single crochet and attach that to the next stitch of the head. Once you go all the way around, I like to bring the end into the inside, and we're going to secure it just like we did with the ears on the inside. No surprise that this yarn is giving me trouble. I'm actually going to instead tie my two ends together from one of the ears and just secure the end that way. And then we have our horn joined, our eyes are joined, and our ears are secured, which means the head is pretty much finished. We just have to add the mane once we get to that step. I'm gonna start putting all my ends in here because we're going to start our decrease rounds for the head. For the next round, we're going to decrease, single crochet 2, and then we'll repeat that 6 times total. And for the next round, we're going to decrease and then single crochet 1, and we'll repeat that 6 times total. Now we're going to single crochet in each stitch around for 2 rounds. At this point you can stuff the head, but I'm going to wait until I finish the increase rounds of the body before I do that. For the next round, we're going to increase and then we're going to single crochet, and we'll repeat that 6 times total. And now for the next 2 rounds, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. Once you finish those 2 single crochet rounds, we're going to increase and then single crochet twice and repeat that 6 times total. And now we can begin stuffing the head if you haven't done so already. So I do this by taking fairly small chunks and pushing it into the head. And I'm using my finger on the inside and my hand on the outside, and I'm pressing it into the plushie and shaping it as I go. Hopefully that makes sense. I have a full crochet foundations on stuffing if any of you are interested. Once you finish stuffing the head, we're going to go back to our crocheting. So for the next 4 rounds, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. Here are the single crochet rounds complete. We are almost done with the body. For the next round, we're going to decrease, single crochet 2, and then repeat that 6 times total. You can begin stuffing the body now if you'd like, but I'm going to wait for the next round to be finished. For the next round, we're going to decrease and then single crochet, and you'll repeat that 6 times total. Now I'm going to stuff the body. Once you're happy with the stuffing, we're going to do our last round. And for the last round, we're going to decrease 6 times. Go ahead and slip stitch, chain 1 and fasten off, leaving a length of yarn. We just need it long enough to close the bottom hole, so it doesn't need to be too crazy long. And at this point, you can add more stuffing if your plushie needs it. Mine just needs a little bit of shaping, so I'm gonna go ahead with my long needle and kind of adjust the stuffing a little bit. And also use my hands to massage it a bit. So we have a couple of things we're gonna do real quick with this body before we move on to making the other pieces. And the first one is we're just gonna sew up the bottom hole. Let's go ahead and thread your needle and grab all of the front loops and then pull tight, create a couple knots like we did earlier with the ears and stuff, and then weave that end in. Now the second thing we're going to do with our unicorn is we're going to shape the face a little bit. This is technically an optional step. I just think it adds a lot more character to the plushie. Here you can see the difference between the two. Just kind of adds that extra touch to it that makes it look even more cute. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our size 4 yarn for this. If you're not using your size 4 yarn, you can just use the same yarn you used for the body. I like to use the size 4 yarn because it doesn't fall apart as easily and it tends to slide a little bit easier. So when you're like sinking the eyes in, you can pull it a little bit easier. So starting from the bottom, you're just going to put your needle in any stitch on the bottom of the plushie. It doesn't matter where. And we're going to kind of come out in the bottom corner of the eye. So this stitch right here. And we're just going to go 1 stitch above it like this, and then go across to the other eye and put your needle in the same spot. So here we have a little loop, and then you're going to do the same thing over here and come back, and we're going to go back to that top stitch again. So here we have 2 loops, one here, and now we're going to take our yarn and we're going to go up to this middle stitch right here in the center of the eye. Go across to the other eye and do the same loop. So here we have a loop across the top of the eye, and then again, same with this one. And now we can bring our yarn back to the chin and drop our needle. So now is when we're going to actually sink the eyes in. So you're going to, what I like to do is I like to push the eyes in and then pull the ends. This just kind of helps you prevent from snapping your yarn. I mean, even size 4 yarn can snap. Gives you a little bit more control over how it shapes. Instead of like this eye sinking in a lot more, you're making them sink in evenly. Hopefully that makes sense. But here's the eyes sunk in, and I think this is looking pretty good, so I'm not going to pull it much more. You do want to tie these 2 ends together underneath the chin. Tie them tighter than you would think, because the sinking, it can come a little bit loose over time. I don't know if that's the right word, but it can unsink a little bit. So you want to make sure these ends are a little bit tighter than you would think. And then I'm going to trim these ends. Make them both even to make it easier to weave in, but you don't have to make them even. I'm going to then weave the ends in. You should have a little dent on the bottom, which is perfectly fine. We're going to use our metal needle in a minute to shape that back to flat again. If you didn't hook any of the cloth, here you can see, if you didn't hook any of this, there we go, then it'll come flat again. So that's what you want it to do. And then I'm just going to tuck this in with the back of my needle because I don't like saving small scraps. I just tend to not use them at all. So I press them in so I don't have to worry about it. Then using your needle, you can go back through and kind of flatten the chin out. But here are the eyes sunk in, and you can play with them a little bit more, kind of shape them with your fingers to make them sit evenly if they aren't already. But the body is essentially done. Obviously we need to sew a bunch of stuff on, but we need to make those things first. The first thing we're going to make is the tail, and then we will do the mane and then the legs. So let's start with the tail. For the tail, I'm going to be using this color. We're just going to create a slip knot onto our hook. I'm going to leave a little bit longer of an end than I normally do. That way I can sew the tail on with both ends. For the tail, we're going to make a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 10. There's multiple places on a chain where you can crochet into. My curls tend to be very tight, so I like to crochet into the top loop of the chain, but other times you may have seen me crochet in the back loop, so this hump right here. If your curls are very loose, you can crochet into the back hump instead, and then I'll tighten it up. But like I said, mine are generally very tight, so I'm just going to crochet into the top loop of the chain. I forgot to mention here, but skip the first chain and then increase in the remaining chains. And for the corkscrews, you're going to just increase in each chain all the way down. So 2 single crochets in each chain. Without fastening off, we're going to start our second curl, so you're going to go ahead and chain 10 again. And then same thing along your chain, 2 single crochets in each stitch, and increase in each stitch all the way back to the top again. And we're going to repeat this process one more time, so you'll have a total of 3 curls for the tail. And here's the tail finished. Now at this point you can add more curls if you'd like. Some of the plushies I've made I've done with 5 curls instead of 3. Just to keep it simple, we are going to be doing 3. Go ahead and chain 1 and fasten off, leaving a length of yarn for sewing. If your yarn falls apart, like mine tends to, you can always join some size 4 yarn, which I'll show you how I do it with the legs later in this video. If so, then you'll need to leave a short end is my point. But here's the tail complete. So now we're gonna do the mane. The mane is made very similar to the tail. We're gonna start with our slip knot onto our hook, and then we are going to chain 12 instead of 10. Same thing, skip that first chain and increase in each of the chains all the way down. Unlike the tail though, we are going to create 7 total curls rather than 3. So repeat the 12 chains, skip that first chain, and increase all the way down, and you're gonna repeat that 7 times total. Once you finish with your main, we're going to chain 1 and fasten off, leaving a long length of yarn for sewing. Here's what it looks like finished with 7 curls. So now we're going to move on to make the legs. For the legs, you're going to need some more of your primary color and some more of your secondary color. If you want to make the hooves at a different color, now would be the time to grab that different color. I'm going to start with my magic ring with my size 4 yarn. And using your hoof color, you're going to join that color and single crochet 6 into that magic ring. Go ahead and close up that magic ring. And now we're going to increase 6 times. For the next round, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. And now we are going to color change. I personally color change by slip stitching, chain 1 and fasten off, but feel free to color change however you'd like. Real quick, we're going to secure our center ends before we join on our second color. Turn it right side out. So now to join my primary color, I insert my hook. This is the slip stitch right here. I insert my hook right next to the slip stitch. And we're just going to yarn over with our new color and pull up a loop. Then we're going to single crochet into that slip stitch and then single crochet around. And when you get back around, make sure that you single crochet in that same stitch where we pulled up that first loop. That way you have 12 total stitches. For the next round, we're just going to single crochet in each stitch. What we're going to do is we're going to just crochet right onto that loop. And this creates a pretty nice color change in my opinion. Now we're going to secure the color change ends just in case. And now at this point you can tuck all the ends into the leg. For the next round we are going to decrease, single crochet 2, and then repeat that 3 times total. And then for the next 2 rounds, we're going to single crochet in each stitch. And when you've finished, go ahead and slip stitch, chain 1, and fasten off. Now I'm going to be joining my size 4 yarn, so I'm going to leave a short end. If you don't want to join any extra yarn, just go ahead and leave a long end and use that end to attach the leg later. So really fast, I'm going to show you how I join my size 4 yarn, and then also we're going to stuff the leg. So to join my size 4 yarn, I thread my needle first and foremost. I then go from the back to the front of the slip stitch and pull out a length of yarn. And then I cut the working yarn, and then I just tie these together. And I tie them together at least 3 times. And while you tie them together, you want to make sure that the leg doesn't turn around. Otherwise, the knot will be very loose and you can pull the size 4 yarn out. If this happens, it's not really a big deal because when you start sewing with it, it does secure the end as well. But just so that it doesn't start slipping out on your first couple of stitches, that's what I do. And then I tuck those ends into the leg, and now I'm going to stuff the leg. And now we're going to repeat this entire process of the legs 3 more times, so you'll have 4 legs total. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and I will come back. We'll be zoomed out, and we're going to start sewing everything together. Here are all the pieces finished. I have the 4 legs, and then the mane and the tail right here, and of course the body. I like to start by sewing on the legs. You of course can sew on any piece that you want, first, last, it doesn't matter really, as long as, you know, all the pieces are attached in the end. What I like to do is I like to put the leg just below the eye. So here you can see just below the eye, and then obviously aiming down. And I like to just start sewing, but you can of course pin the leg in place and then sew it on. But I'm going to go ahead and sew this first leg on. And then I'm going to go back around and reinforce it in the same way we did with the horn, which I'll show you how to do. And then once this leg is attached, I will be attaching the rest. So in exactly the same manner, just kind of placing them and then sewing them on. So here's the leg attached all the way around. So now, like I said, I'm gonna do the reinforcing that I did. So around the post of each single crochet. This makes it a lot more seamless, and then also gives the leg a little bit more reinforcement so it doesn't fall apart as easy. Once you've gone all the way around, we're going to go ahead and secure this end. So what I like to do is create a loop, slip my needle under the loop, and that creates a knot. Pull it nice and tight, and then we're just going to go ahead and weave in the end. And here's the first leg joined. So now we're going to repeat the exact same process. Here you can see how seamless it looks. It looks very nice. So we're going to repeat this process with the rest of the legs. For the back legs, I'm going to place them slightly below the front leg and then attach it like this. But I'm going to go ahead and sew these on, and then we will attach the tail. Here are the legs joined, so now we're going to join on the tail since that's the easiest step, and then we'll do the mane. So for the tail, what I like to do is I like to sew 2 curls centered like this, and then I like to fold that 3rd curl over the top and sew it on. So we're going to start with the 2 straight across. I'm going to thread my needle. Like I said, you want this to be centered. And then I will switch my ends, so I'll drop this one, and using the other end, I'm going to sew it across the center. Now at this point you can go back through and reinforce everything, or you can leave it as it is. I'm just going to secure these ends nice and tight and then weave them in. And here's the tail attached. You can kind of shape it a little bit so that it sits better. But there's the tail. So now we're going to sew on the mane. Now I've sewn the mane on lots of different ways. I've been trying to experiment to see what the best placement is. It doesn't matter that much, if we're being fully honest. But I did for this plushie, which is the best one of my manes that I've made recently, or sewn on recently. As you can see, I kind of just sewed everything so that it flows back, except for one of them, which goes over the ear. I did some stitches down here to kind of tack the curls down a bit more, and they're still movable, as you can see, but they do hold their shape a little bit better. So let me show you how I did that. We're going to start by taking our long end, thread your needle, and I like to start this first curl against the horn. And now this curl can just kind of hang out in front of the ear. So now we have to join the rest of the curls. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be stitching 2 straight across like this. And then I'm going to fold it back over and do 2 more like that. And then I'll finally turn it over once more and sew the other 2 on that way. And then all the hair will kind of sit. And I'll take this front curl and I'll pin it down a bit so that it sits like it's flowing back. I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this end and I'm just kind of gonna bring it to the other side, because I do want to tie these two ends together, but I also don't want to get it all tangled up in the curls, and just, that's annoying. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to fold these curls. So I found that this curl sits better than this one, so I'm just gonna bring this one back instead. And now what we want to do is we want to bring the curls back like this, but we also don't want it to sit like this. So that's where we kind of tack some of them down a tiny bit at the base. So I'm going to tack this one down. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring my yarn over to the middle and tack it down just right at the base. You don't want to tack down too much because, you, like I said, you still want the curls to be able to move, but you don't want them to sit really weird either. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this one here. I'm actually gonna go to the back as well and secure some of these down too. And here's what it looks like. Obviously it's not exactly the same as this one here, but it's pretty close. And that's the fun part about this pattern, is you can do pretty much whatever you want with the mane and just kind of have fun with it. I'm gonna bring this yarn back up to the other end and we're gonna tie them together to secure them. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and weave them both in. And here's our unicorn finished, and I think it turned out pretty cute. The mane is a little crazy, but that's usually what happens with this pattern. Thank you all so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know in the comments below what colors you picked for your unicorn, what materials, and all the fun stuff. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for your support recently. I really truly appreciate it. I will hopefully see you in my next video. I'm actually doing another market vlog about unicorns and dragons, so if y'all are excited for that, make sure to subscribe if you haven't and stick around. I can't wait to see you then. Bye!